Ladies and gentlemen of the Wiz community, we are back with the first of 3 fan-made key bosses. These are going to be a lot like the Ragnarok dungeon videos, so I'm not going to explain myself too much, but if you haven't seen those, go watch them so you know how this works. Remember, all of the music, artwork, and ideas are owned by me and or their respective creators. If you want to repost or use any of it, please contact me. Otherwise, any use of it without consent is stealing. On that note, all of the artists, music composers, and voice actors will be in the description, so check them out. Without further delay, let's get right into it. This story starts as any other. A character you have met before calls you on a quest.
Wizard, there's trouble in Wysterian. If you are free, you should go talk to Headmistress Crisp in her office.
To get this summoning, however, you have to have completed Wysterian, excluding the Tower of the Elephant. But now we travel to Wysterian to meet up with Headmistress Crisp. Just as a note, this questline and key boss are at level 45 difficulty. Also, forcing the player to have done Wysterian, which most consider a skippable world, would now make it something you might consider. Just check out some of these drops.
Look who's back, the great Spiral Cup champion. Looking for a real education? Well, since you're here, I guess we could use your help. You claim to have cleaned up Pegasus Place, yet for some reason, our Pegasi are disappearing. Go to the Airy and see what's wrong.
Off to go see Lapin. Hey guys, if you didn't recognize that voice, that was the awesome Fairy Queens. If you guys don't follow her on Twitch or YouTube, go check her out. Links are in the description below, and I want to thank her for last minute filling in and giving me the voice lines. She did an awesome job, and I'm glad this project came together like this.
Oh, hello, it's you. Thank goodness you've come. The Pegasi are disappearing in large numbers. Without their sale as mounts, Headmistress Crisp said we might have to double tuition for the 6th year in a row. You have to help us, Wizard. Use the Pegasus to fly up and see what's going on.
For a wooden key boss, we knew we needed low stakes. Pegasus disappearing shouldn't mean the end of the world, but that doesn't mean that we can't make the story interesting or the dialogue fun. Now we queue on the Pegasus and ride it up into the sky. Here in the dungeon, we are now on a cloud. Winds are blowing strongly, so we must use a wooden key to get by. After that, we come face to face with the boss, who is the one behind the Pegasus problem.
Why don't you budge? My brothers and I seek open and smells free air. These Wysterians and our Pegasus pests have been clogging up our skies for far too long. It's time to get rid of them, and you too!
This dungeon quest's name is Oh Where the Wind Blows. By the way, most songs I use are stolen, but the song during this fight was made in just a few days by a friend and fellow Wiz streamer, Cara Cakes, so go check her out. Her socials along with the full song will be in the description. Time to fight the boss of this dungeon, the 4 winds. Here we fight the north, east, south, and west winds. The north wind is ice, east is sun, south is storm, and west is moon. Each wind has 7,500 health, 15% damage, and 5% pierce, with boosts and resist based on their schools. The north wind boosts fire and resists ice while using spells like Blizzard, Frostbite, and Snow Serpent. The east wind boosts ice and resists fire using spells like Link and Scald. The south wind boosts myth and resists storms using spells like Tempest, Wild Bolt, and Kraken. And lastly, the west wind boosts storm and resists myth using spells like Legion Shield, Stun, and Shatter. These bosses operate on a 4-round rotation. At the beginning of the first round, the north wind will do its cheat of casting an AoE Frostbite. At the beginning of the second round, the east wind will cast Legion Shield. At the beginning of the third round, the south wind will switch around Wizard's positions. At the beginning of the fourth round, the west wind will enfeeble, which cannot be dispelled, the wizard with the most blades. After this, the cycle resets with the north wind cheating again. The only other cheat from these bosses is that if a dot spell is cast on the enemy, the east wind will mass triage, taking it off, and this is able to be dispelled. If an enemy dies, then their cheat will just not go off for that round. Before we get to the drops, let's go over strategies and influence. For high level wizards, this boss should be pretty easy. Basically mass feint or blade a few times and you can wipe out all the enemies. Remember, on the second of every 4-round rotation, the Eastman will use a Legion Shield, and you can't use dot spells unless you life dispel it. Also, have your hitters with the blades hit because at the beginning of every 4th round, the Westwind will enfeeble the wizards with the most blades. As far as doing this with lower levels, if you can't find a max to help you, try killing one enemy at a time. Which one you think is the biggest threat will depend, but the less you have to fight with their cheats, the better. Now let's look at design. KingsIsle has stated that they design their bosses kind of like a puzzle. I don't really agree with this. I choose to design my bosses around how I want them to feel. How does the character of the boss feel? And how does this translate into how the fight feels? Designing a boss as an experience makes it more memorable than if it were a puzzle. We like to bring certain themes into these bosses. This boss is the wind. It's always moving, always free. We want to keep this theme of movement and change into the battle. Every round is a different cheat to adapt to in the cycle. One of the bosses even switches the positions of the wizard in the duel. Basically, this fight should be interesting and deal with the theme of change and movement, but still not be too difficult. Now for the drops. This boss drops a wind reagent for every school. The drop rate for these would be low, but not crazy low. Maybe somewhere between 10 and 20%, and they are no trade, no auction reagents. Also, you can only get your own school's version of this reagent. Now, these reagents are not trade and auctionable because they will be used to craft the new spells in some of the new gear. Besides the reagents, the boss also drops wooden keys, so there's a chance you get the key back that you just spent. They also drop a deck called the Wind's Favor. This deck offers a good amount of spells along with 9 health, 3% accuracy, and a jewel slot. This deck is level 45 plus and is tradable. Therefore, it would be good for low level characters to give them a little boost when questing. Besides the reagents, keys, and decks, there's one more drop that comes from the boss. This drop is a propeller hat. This piercing gear is no trade, no auction, and has a low drop rate like that of the Divine Amulet, so super low. This thing also has no stats, but for fun could have like 1% movement speed. It's basically a silly novelty drop that has little to do with the wind. It would be a fun thing to have and flex on other wizards. Now I know you're all waiting for the spells, but before we get onto that, let's turn in the quest.
You did it? You did it! Thank you, wizard. And I think that Pegasus might stick around with you for a little while. I'll have somebody tell the headmistress what you have done. Maybe she'll take off 5% of your tuition if you choose to transfer.
With turning in this quest, we get a funny joke about discounts along with a 7-day Sky Racer Pegasus mount and the badge, Rider on the Wind. Lapin Wingtamer will now, if you're a master / Dragonspire crafter, give us crafting recipes for the spells and the gear. The gear first is no trade, no auction, and is strictly for looks, having no stats. This includes the Wind's Cap, Wind's Garb, and Wind's Greaves, and each will take 3 reagents. Then there are the spells. These cost 5 reagents, and you can only craft your own school. So many rules, I know, but we really want to emphasize beating Wysteria, crafting, and also farming on each wizard you want to spell on. Not just getting a 1 max character and then transferring everything over. That kind of defeats the point. Anyway, I've kept it long enough, so let's talk about these new utility spells. The first spell is for balance. This spell is the much needed Mass Balance Prism. This spell for 2 pips now allows balance to convert balance damage into damage of a random school. Balance desperately needs this, and I'm surprised KingsIsle hasn't actually put this into the game yet, but here it is. Not much to discuss here, so let's move on to Fire Spell. This spell is called Stoke the Flames, and for 2 pips, extends the duration of a dot spell by 1 round. Just to note, this spell is a single target and can only be used once per dot. I also want to mention that some of these upcoming spells might be really good in PvP. First off, PvP is already fairly touchy and broken. Secondly, this is a fan-made concept, so just have fun with it. And thirdly, I'm not a game dev. These could be balanced when put into the game or just made no PvP overall. Okay, next spell is for Storm. Storm Surge is 2 pips and gives a 175 heal along with a 20% Storm Blade, and both of these are to self. Putting on a different enchant like a Radical or an Aegis would not stack this, but a Sharpen would. This, like many spells, is good for solo questing, specifically at a low level. This gives Storm a little extra health, while still giving them the ability to blade, both things they want to do. Myth has the next spell, and it's called Unyielding. This spell is for 1 pip and gives a mass stun block to the team, with only 1 shield per ally. This spell is pretty simple. It's a Legion shield, but for 1 stun block. Next spell is for Ice. Snowbank costs 4 pips and gives Ice the opportunity to give 2 pips to an ally, along with a 30% universal shield wall. This spell is helpful to give an ally who needs pips and a little resist. Yes, I get this used on yourself, especially in low level PvP, is really strong. Relax. If you don't like this, just wait for a death spell. Alright, for life they get Fungal Growth. This spell costs 2 pips and gives life a 25% life blade on self, and then gives them a 20% life trap on a selected enemy. Everyone knows life struggles when hitting, so this would be helpful especially against bosses. The last spell is also the craziest spell, and is for death. This spell is called Undying Breath. For 4 pips, lasting 4 rounds, Death Wizards get to stop death at 1 health. So this spell looks and would work very similar to Guardian Spirit. It only lasts 4 rounds and would only pop once, stopping death. In this regard, it's fairly balanced, especially for 4 pips. This would be better than Guardian Spirit in the fact that it would allow the hitter to still get their hit off and keep their blades and pips. So there you have it, the new utility spells. With that part complete, that concludes our key boss, and this is the shortest of the 3. We have the others in the works with the artwork and concepting mostly done, to look for those in hopefully the next month. Also, I have ideas for more projects and expansions, including new areas and even a whole entire new world that we're working on, so get excited. One of these areas I actually want to design and concept right alongside you guys. So head over to my Twitch and make sure not to miss any of those design streams where we go over stats and gear and new spells and bosses and everything. Let me know what your favorite part of this new boss was in the comments below. I love reading all of them, no matter if they're posted right now as the video is or months after. Let's try to get this video to 45 likes and make sure you're subscribed not to miss any future content. I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you later.